This is Mad Movie Mark on the Mad Movie Mark Movie Review. Thank you for joining me as I review the 1973 sci-fi comedy Sleeper.
Some of us have a theory that he did something horrendous so that all records, everything was wiped out about him. There is nothing in history books. There are no pictures on stamps, on money.
Hey, well, I don't know why you would think of that I'm important, but that's true. I'm not in any of the history books. I'm just a guy who's reviewing every movie that has 100% fresh rating on Rotten Tomatoes. I'm giving them all a score of 1 to 10. After I watch them and score them all, I will rank them from worst to best. I started in the 1920s silent movie era, and I'm at 1973 with Sleeper. This movie has a 100% fresh rating from the critics and an 81% fresh rating from the audience. It stars Woody Allen as Miles Monroe and Diane Keaton as Luna Schuessler. This is only the second Woody Allen movie I've ever seen. The first one was Annie Hall. I had no idea that Woody Allen dated Diane Keaton for a period of time, but when this movie came out, they had already separated, nor did I have any idea that she was in so many of his movies. Like, I've heard of Diane Keaton, obviously, but I didn't know that she was in any Woody Allen movies. And I will say, this is probably one of the funniest movies I've ever seen in my life. I don't know if it's up there with The Jerk, which I think is still the funniest movie I've ever seen, but this movie is absolutely hilarious. I definitely see how other movies after it have borrowed from it, especially something like Austin Powers, which is one of my favorite comedies of all time, is almost a mirror image of what this movie is. There's so many similarities. So in this movie, Woody Allen plays a gentleman who in 1973 went in for a routine surgery. There were complications from the surgery, so his aunt decided that they would cryogenically freeze him, and maybe one day he would be unfrozen. And you know how this works, where you're hoping that whatever ailment you're suffering from can be cured and you can live on. So he is cryogenically frozen for 200 years when this group of resistance fighters, they find him, they decide to unfreeze him.
Where was the subject found?
We came across it the last day of our field trip into the woods a week ago. The capsule was perfectly intact.
Is there a date on the capsule?
Oh, yes. The subject was frozen in 1973, which means he's been under for 200 years.
And so he was once a owner of a Happy Carrot food health restaurant. So he's, even in 1973, he wasn't like a very big and important person, but we learned that they wouldn't unfreeze him because now they're in 2173, 200 years later, and in this time period, everyone has kind of a barcode assigned to them. The government knows everyone's whereabouts and where they are at every time. So it's really hard for a resistance fighting team to get anywhere when the government can track them and always know where they are. But since they have this guy from 1973 who has no tracking system on him, he can easily try to infiltrate like the government and get whatever information they're trying to get. I think I got lost in the plot a little bit, but it doesn't really matter because the movie's funny anyway, so like I didn't really care what the plot really was anyway. So they unfreeze him, and when they unfreeze him, he does a lot of goofy things. It's kind of like they unfreeze him too soon, and he isn't able to control his motor skills. He's unable to talk. He's kind of bouncing around a lot, and he's kind of doing a lot of weird movements. At one point, these like people from the government come in and they try to ask these resistant fighters, "Hey, what are you doing in this lab? Like, what's going on?" And Woody Allen's character, who is Miles, he's just like riding around in a wheelchair and just doing like goofy stuff. It's absolutely hilarious.
I think I can explain. You've heard of the Venus Project, haven't you?
Yes.
We had to come in here this evening to finish up some very important work. Now, when we asked for clearance, we were given no reason to believe that we couldn't make.
You have authorization?
Yes, we have clearance given.
You came
through channels fully a week ago. Don't you believe,
Dr. Monroe?
I had no idea Woody Allen had such great comedic timing. I had no idea that he was so funny. I knew he was a famous actor, but I didn't know like he was such a funny actor. So they end up telling him like that he was frozen for 200 years, and of course he takes the news badly because he was just in for a routine surgery, and now he's mixed up in this like resistance thing against the government.
I can't believe this. My doctor said I'd be up and on my feet in 5 days. He was off by 199 years.
I know it's hard, Miles, but try to think of this experience as a miracle of science.
To me, a miracle of science is I go into the hospital for a minor operation. I come out the next day. My rent isn't 2,000 months overdue.
And it's all crazy. So the government ends up infiltrating the resistance camp, and they kill the leader. But Miles is able to get away, and he gets away by disguising himself as a robot. Now, the robot scenes in this movie are probably the funniest scenes I've ever seen in a movie ever. He's just like shuffling around and like trying to pretend like he's a robot, but it's not believable at all. But everyone around him believes that he is this robot. I really was hoping that the whole movie he would just be in this robot costume and doing these robot things, because it is just absolutely genius, and it's so out there, and it's just so funny, and I was all about this. It was just comic genius to me what he was doing on screen when he was this robot. So he eventually meets Diane Keaton's character, and he reaches out to her for help. There's also Diane Keaton's character. She's an artist, and everyone, I guess, in the future has this like orgasm machine where two people can walk in, and it's like replacing like sex. And they also have these like balls. They're like steel balls that I guess are supposed to also give you that same sensation. So there's a funny point in the movie where he like is dressed as this robot, and he has like this metal ball in his hand. He's like going crazy. Like it's just absolutely hilarious. Diane Keaton at first is scared by him because she's told that this like the news is all out about Miles, and they're calling him this alien, and she's scared because she thinks that he's an alien and that he's coming after her.
Look, you have to help me. I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm not a puppet. My name is Miles Monroe. I was frozen in 1973, and some doctors thought me out. Suddenly everybody's after me, but I didn't do anything. I'm a nice person. I have healthy life drives and good goals. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I would never force myself sexually on a blind person.
You're the alien.
Yes. You're living in a police state. Your government is evil. We have to find out what the Ares Project is.
God, you are. You're the alien.
You won't...
So she ends up calling up like the government and saying, hey, like I found the alien, you should come get him. So they end up coming to get him, but when they find Diane Keaton, they decide that they're going to erase her memory as well as his. So he ends up, in a very funny manner, he ends up getting them both free.
Discretion, I say destroyer.
And there's a point where he gets captured, and they try to reprogram him so that he doesn't remember like anything that he found, and that he's a completely different person. Now, when the government's trying to reprogram them, they make it as if he is in a beauty contest, and he's like the winner of a beauty contest. I didn't think that this was all that funny. I thought that there were some points in the middle where it kind of their comedy that they were doing, just I wasn't understanding it. Like I didn't understand why him winning this beauty contest, and that's how they were reprogramming him, how that would work or why that was funny. But the resistance team ends up getting him back, and they have to like reprogram him. And to do this, Diane Keaton like does a little bit of a monologue from A Streetcar Named Desire, which is much better than the scene where he's trying to be this beauty queen.
I've been on to you from the start. I seen how you trying to sprinkle this place up with them powders and those fancy French colognes. Well, I say ha. You hear me? Ha, ha.
Eventually, the government, they end up having to, or the resistance, they try to clone their former leader because they like have a piece of his nose that they found, and you know, they're talking about how they haven't like tried to successfully clone anything ever, which isn't true. Like that's not true today. Like they've cloned Dolly the sheep, so it's happened. So that wasn't a true prediction as you're watching the movie. But I felt like the cloning stuff at the end with the nose, and then trying to do this operation to them disguising themselves as doctors to try to do the cloning. I thought that was. Maybe the movie was running a little bit long there. They were just stretching it a little too much. I didn't find any of that part particularly funny. There is a funny scene. There's a lot of like really funny gags and really funny one-liners and really funny things that they say in this movie. There's a point where they make fun of the NRA, which that was absolutely funny.
Oh, he was probably a member of the National Rifle Association. There was a group that helped criminals get guns so they could shoot citizens. It was a public service.
But then, like, on the opposite coin, he talks about how he doesn't trust like medicine, so he like basically runs the political gamut. If you're looking at this politically, he is on both sides. But this movie is hilarious, and like I said, I wish there were more of that robot scene where he's playing the robot because it's absolutely ingenious. And it's just so good, and I don't know why I haven't seen more Woody Allen movies. I think it's because of like the person that he is and like his personal life with like who he chose to be his wife later on in life. I always kind of shied away from watching Woody Allen movies because like I felt like they were dirty, like because of the person that he is. But this movie was hilarious. He has 2 more movies that are 100% frustrating. One more of them has Diane Keaton, so we'll see them again. But this movie is absolutely amazing. Besides a couple areas that I thought dragged on a little too long or that I didn't really understand. Funny. The whole thing is funny. There's gags everywhere, one-liners everywhere. His physical comedy is amazing. I give this movie Sleeper a 9.5 out of 10. Thank you. I hope you join me for my next review, which is going to be The Taking of Penhelm 123. Hope you have a good day.